Okay, well here's the piece I was just working on. Like I said, I have to backtrack on some things because I'm having to figure them out as I go. So I do have the belt clip installed, as you can see. And using those 3 points that I referenced earlier, I used a leather punch on its largest setting, which I just happen to already have. And I pierced a hole here, here, and here. And to take out the slot, which is really hard to see, but you can kind of get the idea there, I used a chisel and I just came in and hit that out on both sides to knock that out. Then I took a Q-tip and I've got some dye on it, and I dyed the inside of the hole. I actually just burnished it with a screwdriver. Doesn't really matter all that much in there. And you can see I put some dye all around in this area because this is going to be really hard to get to, especially underneath this clip. This is the Chicago screw that I was using, which were 1/4 inch, and obviously this is way less than 1/4 inch. So what I ended up doing, which is probably not going to be what you're going to want to do, is I ground this down on my bench grinder very short. And I did the same thing with the screw, ground it all the way down to make them shorter to where I could actually tighten this screw up to where it was effective. And before I tightened it up, I put a little bit of Loctite sealant in there so it shouldn't back out. A rivet would probably be better, or maybe you can find smaller Chicago screws, but since that's what I've got, this is what I did. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is, with this being put on here like so, I'm going to be able to actually see natural leather down in through this slot. So I'm going to actually take a little bit of dye on a Q-tip, and I'm going to dye an area right here to hide that. And once I get that done, I'm going to put it on like this. I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to lightly make a mark down in here, and that's going to be my glue line, so I'll know where to stop my contact cement to glue these two pieces together. I'm also going to come in here with a card file, which is this right here. It's basically a wire brush. It's for cleaning files out. They actually sell something like this for scuffing up leather, but I'm going to come in here and scuff that area that I'm going to glue to roughen it up to give it a little bit more bite. So I'm going to do all those steps that I just discussed, and then once I get it glued together, I'll do a quick shot of that, and then we're going to begin hand stitching this right here. Okay, well here's the two pieces glued together. I did do a couple things before I actually did the gluing process, so I wanted to make note on those. I did come in here with my edge tool, and I rounded off the edge from here all the way around to here. I did do that, and then I applied the contact cement like I discussed, and they're bound together right now. The thing I did past that was, after I got this glued together, I actually used what's called a J roller. It's actually for doing laminate, but once I contacted them, I rolled it out and made a good pressing on this to make sure everything was intact. And then I took it back over to my drill press with the drum sander, and I ran around these edges to make them identical, so it's nice and flat right now. Hopefully you can see that. There are some whiskers hanging off, but that'll be taken care of in the burnishing. So I think everything is looking pretty good. I really do hope that this turns out as intended and everything fits, because it's a little bit of work, but all in all it's looking alright. So what I plan on doing, or actually what should be done, is the groove that I've cut around here should also be cut on the back side for those stitches to recess into. And I can do them all the way around to this point, from here all the way around to here with no problem, but I don't have a way to do this particular area on the back side. I don't have a freehand groover, so I think this in this area is just they're just going to have to be a little bit exposed, or I may try to come up with a way to groove that out freehand, but I do not have the tool to do that, but that's how that should be done. So at this point, I believe I am going to run the groove as far as I can on the back side of the leather, like I said, and then we're actually, I guess, to the point where we're going to start piercing some holes and stitching this together. Okay, well, I did a little experiment and I was able to follow this line on the back side freehand, and I'll explain how I did that. As you can see, I went ahead and pierced a series of holes in my stitch line just to make a reference, and then I flipped it over and I used a pencil to lightly draw in that radius, that shape around here, and then I just extended my blade on this tool, this grooving tool, and I just went in here freehand with it, light passes, followed my line. It worked out great. So that's an idea on how to accomplish that task. I just wanted to make note of that, and I do believe that now it is time to start stitching this out. So I'm going to get set up and show how to thread the needles up properly, and then we'll start stitching this thing. Okay, well, we're going to start preparing our needles here. I have 2 of them laid out, and I also have a length of the waxed braided cord. And the way I derived at this length is a formula I found online, which I'm going to go ahead and try it and see how it works. You start and kind of lay the cord around like so, all the way around what you are going to be stitching and back to the beginning. Then you add about 4 or 6 inches, then you double that, and then you double that again. So you end up with quite a lengthy piece of cord here. So I'm going to use this formula, and hopefully I have enough to complete the stitching around here, but let's move on to preparing the needles. So to prepare the needles, you know, obviously you want to stick it through the eye. You want to take out about 1.5 inches of thread or so, and I'm going to lay it down, and I'm actually going to pierce this through the center, pull it up on there. So you can see I've kind of gone through the center with the needle. So I'm going to push that down towards the eye, and then I'm going to pull out the excess, and I'm going to work it off the end so it actually makes a nice little knot. And I'm going to do that on both sides. So let me find the other end real quick and get this done, because there's one step past this, and then we'll start working on the stitching. Same principle, going through the eye, about 1.5 inches. I'm going to pierce the cord, bring it up onto the needle, push it towards the eye, pull the excess out, and then come across and bring it to the outside. So that is going to ensure that those needles, you can see I'm really tugging, and they just will not come off there, so you're not going to have a problem with unthreading your needle. Okay, so at this point we want to find the center of our thread, so I'm just going to hold the needles together, and I'm going to start working them out, and I'm going to find the center here. I'm going to give it one little twist, and I'm going to grab the thread that is on the bottom of my twist and find the needle and fish it through the hole, and we're actually tying a knot right here. So there's the knot. And that knot, since we have so much thread here, it's going to be easier to start our stitching because we're going to know exactly where the center of that thread is. And we want the same amount on either side. So what we're going to do on the first stitch is we're going to start it through, and we're going to pull the knot to the center of our two pieces, and then we're going to start stitching.